Are you feeling a little unsure about the economic conditions right now and maybe a little bit worried about your business and how what is happening in the world is going to affect your business and how you could potentially protect yourself? Well, if any of these things are going through your mind, I have made this video specifically for you today. Today, I'm going to give you 7 practical, thoughtful tips to help you prepare for uncertainty, preserve cash, and protect the future of your business. If you're new here, I'm Smolinski. I am the founder of Clara CFO Group, where we help business owners just like you create clarity and confidence in their business finances. So if you want grounded financial advice without all the drama, make sure you subscribe to the channel and come back each week. So I want to give practical tips to you guys. So our first one is to remember that cash is king or queen, whichever you prefer. But cash is going to be the thing that will help you weather some ups and downs. And you might be saying, well, Hannah, I already don't have cash. And so telling me I need cash is kind of like a slap in the face. That is not what I'm trying to do. What I want to remind you is thinking about how can we accelerate cash into your business, okay? Or if you do already have cash, this is a time to consider preserving it, okay? So I have been working with businesses right now. We are looking at how can we accelerate invoicing, get money coming in faster? How can we accelerate a sales cycle a little bit faster? How can we reduce our expenses? How can we make decisions with our cash balances in mind? So this is not a time for us to be doing a lot of extra capital expenditures and to be like prepaying for anything. We're not trying to get ahead of, potentially our payables or anything like that. We're going to be looking at how do we extend our terms? How do we slow down the money going out of the business? Because those things are going to help our cash flow. Okay. And I do have other cash flow videos. I will be sure to link them below so that if you want to learn a little bit more about how to decrease or how to accelerate your cash flow, decrease the outflow, increase the inflow, I'm going to put those resources below in the description box. Okay. But focusing on your cash balance and making decisions with your cash balance in mind is going to be the number one thing I'd like to tell you, because the more cash you have, you are protecting yourself and giving yourself a buffer to weather the ups and downs. So if you lose a potential client or demand is significantly decreased for your product or service, you have some time when you have cash. When you have no cash, you have to make very quick decisions and you might have to potentially shut down your entire business because you don't have anything to kind of wait out a potential decline, okay? So cash equals buffer for your business and it gives you time. When you have time, you have flexibility and you also have time to make more thoughtful decisions, okay? So number 2, this is in, thinking about cash, is also check your line of credit. If you do not have a line of credit, I would recommend, and you have cash in the bank, please go talk to your bank right now to see if you can have access to a line of credit, okay? Because a line of credit is kind of I see it as almost insurance for your business in a way and it's not insurance, nobody quote me on that, it's not actually insurance, but it kind of is this sort of fallback mechanism of when you don't have the cash or you're trying to you've got your cash tied up in something else, let's say an inventory purchase or something, you can leverage a line of credit for a little while until that inventory is sold. So a line of credit is sort of a nice little fallback. And, even if you just need to use it a little bit to cover payroll because you're waiting on an invoice to come in because maybe your customers are paying you really slow because they're having cash flow problems, a line of credit will help you, again, weather a storm, okay? So if you don't already have a line of credit, go talk to your bank, see if you can get a line of credit. Banks will start pulling back lending when there is an economic decline. So try to do that as soon as possible if you don't already have it. If you do already have a line of credit, check in, make sure it's active. Maybe borrow from it a little bit and then pay it right back so that you know and that the bank knows that you still want to have that. Sometimes banks can pull lines of credit if they haven't been used, they will just close it. So make sure it's active and make sure that you can use it. Okay, the third thing that I'm going to tell you guys about is to look at yourself. Look at your personal expenses and make sure that your personal expenses are also in check in a potential economic downturn, okay? So what I mean by that is that your spending as a business owner can affect your business. if your spending as a business owner has always been a little bit on the, more excessive side, and maybe your business has been doing really well in the past, but you've been spending, assuming that your income is going to continue to go up, like a lot of humans do. When we see that our business is doing well, we get excited. Maybe we make an investment. Maybe we buy, a new toy, a new property, something like that. Expenses start to inflate. And you don't think about the fact that your business might deflate at some time, and you might not have as much excess cash. So your personal spending, if it is high and you need a lot coming out of the business, then when your business is not doing well, your high personal spending and needing money to come out of the business could actually be the problem and could even tank your business altogether. So the best thing that you can do is look at your personal expenses and get them in line and get them in check so that your business does not have to support your excessive lifestyle. If you can make it all work, that is totally fine. I think that business ownership should be able to support your lifestyle, but we do need to know that we're not always going to be in boom times, and you might need to look at your personal spending because that might be part of the cash flow problem, okay? I'm gonna give you a quick example from my own life. At the beginning of this year, put it even on my vision board, I'd like to get a new car this year, okay? I've been driving a 2018 fully paid for little sedan, nothing fancy, nothing special. It is a very practical car. And I wanted a nicer car. I'm just gonna say it. I wanted a SUV, an all-wheel drive, so I could drive up into the mountains with no problem. And I wanted nice seats, and I wanted a heated steering wheel, and I wanted a nice, maybe even massaging seats, because I wanted to get real bougie about it, okay? So I wanted a nice car. But I have made the decision recently, going back and forth, test driving cars back and forth, decided that I am going to wait. When I was doing my personal cash flow forecasting, I could afford it, but I thought, you know what? I don't need to put that extra pressure that I need that extra money coming in every month from my business. I thought that's one less pressure that I will have to have. So I can actually, if our business shrinks for some reason, that I don't need and require that money coming out of the business. That's my own story, tailor it to whatever's going on in your life. But our personal spending, when we need to take draws from the business or we need our salary to be a certain amount, if I needed to take a lower salary, if something happened in the business, I'm giving myself flexibility to reduce my salary by reducing my personal expenses without my personal life going into a financial hardship. Hopefully you guys are on board with me for that one. I know that one's a little hard to hear sometimes. But we've got other places to look for money. If there's no way you can reduce your personal expenses, number 4, the 4th tip I had for you is that we need to look for waste in your P&L, your profit and loss. So all of us, even the CFO agency, we probably have some expenses tucked away in our P&L that could be cut. We've done this process a number of times for our own business, and every time we do it, we find a little something that maybe we don't need, okay? So the process of going through your profit and loss is you literally pull a profit and loss report from your QuickBooks or from whatever accounting system you're using, and you click into all of the detail to say, what am I spending in this? And then you say we have a Slack subscription. How many people are on that? How many people are on our team? And you look to see, are we overspending on this? What about Dropbox? What about our rent? What about, our office supplies? Why are we buying so many Post-it notes? Whatever it is, it's time to get really, really detailed and look at your profit loss and sit there and scrutinize every single line item. Now, this is something that we do with clients because we do a full-on expense review before we start working with people or as we start working with people, and we always find money every single time. So you could do a similar thing, pull up your profit and loss statement, go line by line through everything and find money so you can cut expenses. It just happens that as our businesses go, activities happen, and then we say yes to things, and then we forget to go and turn those things off. or, somebody has a credit card somewhere in the organization and doesn't realize that they have a budget on their spending. And so, they're out taking clients to lunch every single day where you are like, no, that actually isn't in our budget at all. So there can be lots of different ways that, expenses creep up and they get larger and larger. And so there has to be, and every single person will be able to find some savings if they do a deep dive into their P&L. If you are not finding anything very obvious, you can also look at renegotiating anything that is a contract. So if you have a rent agreement, for example, like maybe you are not using the building as much as you thought you would be, you could potentially talk to a landlord and see if you could renegotiate. Sometimes with contracts, it's better for the other side of the contract to get something rather than nothing. So if you are like, hey, I'm having cash flow problems, I can pay you $2,500 instead of $3,000 every month. They might be willing to take that because what are they going to do? Just not get paid $3,000 all the time. So you need to think about like what might be a bargaining chip for them. And, if you can renegotiate a contract, you can always try. The worst thing they can do is say no, and you're still stuck with a contract as is because a contract is a legally binding document. Okay, next thing, very important, do some scenario planning. This is tip number 5. Do scenario planning in your business. And what do I mean by scenario planning? That is to take your financial plan for the year. All of us should have a budget or some kind of forecast for the year. If you don't, I have a video on it. I will put it below. It's how to create a strategic budget. But you can create what you think is going to happen based on the employees you have, the customers you think you're going to have, or the sales you've had in the past. Maybe you have contracts and you can put that income in there. The expenses that you're going to have, your rent, your insurance. There's actually most of our expenses in our business are pretty predictable. It's revenue sometimes that's hard. So you can create a financial plan and then you start manipulating it. You copy, if you're doing this in Excel, you literally copy and paste that tab. And you say, okay, what happens if revenue goes down by 50%? What happens if we lose our biggest client? Take out that money. Look at the bottom line. Did the number move? Yeah, your profit's going to go down. So if that happens, what are we going to do? If we lose X amount of revenue, we need to reduce X amount of expenses. How are we going to do that? Well, maybe we need to let, a team member go that is in charge of that customer. Like maybe the project manager on that customer would, need to leave. Let's just say something like that. Or maybe you say, hey, if we don't have that customer, maybe we don't have this other expense that has been on the P&L for that customer. You can start to look at what would be the financial impact if you lost a big customer, if you demand decreased by 25%, demand decreased by 50%, demand decreased altogether and you had zero income for 3 months. How long could your business last? So, and the point is that you want to think about the actions that you would take in these different scenarios. And this is to equip you to start to feel more comfortable. So if you are worried about something happening, you can literally walk through and say, okay, well, we know that if we get to this level of revenue, then we are going to decrease these salaries. Like let's say we're going to decrease the owner's salary by 25%. We're going to let so-and-so go. We're going to cut all travel costs and all travel spending. We're going to let our marketing company, potentially we're going to have to renegotiate with them to a lower package. And you can go line by line and say, these are the things that we'd like to do. These are the places that we feel like we could flex if we need to. Or you could say, this is how long I'm willing to go into a deficit, or how much of my cash am I willing to spend to support this business, to ride out, some potentially bumpy times, okay? But the point of doing scenario planning is sometimes business owners will think in their heads that everything's over because they haven't looked at the numbers. Or maybe they'll think in their heads like everything's going to be fine because I know I have this, but then when they look at the numbers, they actually don't have enough cash to support their plan. So the whole point of doing scenario planning is so that you can actually prove to yourself that your plan will make sense financially. And you can do that through the numbers. If you have no idea how to do that and you would like support in doing that, we do this with businesses that are making over $1 million and who are in B2B services. So if you are an agency or a firm owner or something like that, we help clients do that. So you can always book a discovery call. We'll make sure that the link is there in the description box below. But scenario planning can be done with some Excel skills. But really what I want you to do is I want you to put the numbers, run the numbers on the scenarios, because when we are just stuck in our thoughts and our feelings about the numbers, sometimes it can be way off. So I went through this recently with a client on a call on a Friday. It was, oh no, nothing's working. We're not going to be okay. I might need to have to lay a bunch of people off. And that was the feeling. And I said, hold on. Well, let's talk Monday. I'm going to pull together the numbers and we can actually see like how much would we need to reduce our expenses. And once we pulled the numbers and we factored in our accounts receivable, we factored in contracts that we currently had, we are going to be in a very healthy place for the next 4 months. After 4 months, we've got some work to do. We know that we need to work on sales for that future 4 months and beyond, but the actual next 4 months are very healthy. So now the business owner knows what he needs to work on. And now we kind of have a scenario that we can play with to say, what if after those 4 months, what if we have no revenue? He can make a decision on how long he's willing to go into the deficit and keep people on, or if he wants to, if we have 50% revenue, what does that look like? So very practically, we could make a lot of decisions that way, and it made him feel a lot better too. Okay, number 6, focus a lot of your energy on sales tasks. So when things are not going so well, sometimes sales can just be deflated. And sometimes sales is not a place that people are focusing because they're hearing no, or they're just not hearing back at all, or whatever it might be. But this is a very good time to refocus efforts on doing all of the sales tasks. Following up on prior leads, like making sure that you have conversations with people who've expressed interest, following up after proposals, looking for new business in different places, identifying new prospects, whatever your sales process is, this is the time to work it to a high degree. Now, as a business owner, it might be time for you to step in and also help with that if that is, makes sense in your role. But this is not a time to neglect sales tasks, okay? So just because the economy is not doing well doesn't mean that there aren't still buyers. There's going to still be buyers for your service or your product, okay? So we just don't want our salespeople to get depressed and because they're hearing more no's and they're not doing anything. So make sure that you are still encouraging and helping the sales team do whatever it is that they need to do. And maybe it's a sales team of 1, maybe it's you. If that's the case, just remember there are still going to be buyers out there. Continue to work the sales process. Don't give up. And my last practical tip for you today is to make thoughtful decisions. Have numbers in front of you before you decide to cut somebody's job or to get out of a contract or whatever it might be. Whatever decision you feel like you need to make, you have the ability to slow down, maybe consult an advisor, maybe look into the data, whatever the data might be, and don't feel like you need to make a reactive decision. Make sure that it's strategic, make sure that it's supported, and that ultimately you feel good about it as a business owner. I mean, nobody ever feels good about having to let people go, for example, but know why you're letting them go. And then also make sure that you have the data to support it, because you would hate to come to find out that you actually could have kept on a team member, but because you didn't have the data and you weren't making a thoughtful decision, you let someone go, and then you actually, want to have that person back on your team. Like that would be a very uncomfortable place to be. So slow down, make thoughtful decisions, think strategically about every single, potential cut that you might need to do. Bring people around you. A lot of times this is a time that you don't want to be having to make all these decisions alone, okay? So if that's like a mentor, if it's an advisor, if it's an accountability group, if it's a professional like a CFO or CPA or somebody else that's around you, just make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who you trust and know your business, and they can support those decisions alongside you. Well, those are my tips for you. We can make it through this. I will tell you that. One of the very best things about being a small business owner is we are nimble and that we can change, and we, can adjust to the markets more quickly than large businesses. So keep that in mind. That is your strength. You can make decisions and have them be very thoughtful, but also be, fairly quick. You have the ability as a business owner to walk into a bank tomorrow and potentially talk to a banker about getting a line of credit, where if you're a large business, that might have to go through multiple approval processes before you could even do that. So just remember that your flexibility, being small, is one of your strengths. And also, I am here for you. And if you have other topics you'd like to hear about at this time, if you're struggling with something right now and you'd like some advice and you want a video on it, please be sure to put it in the comment section below. But please tell me if any of these resonated with you and anything that you will be doing in the comments below. I'd appreciate it. All right, this is the time. Give me your feedback. I want all of it, okay? And I'm here for you. All right, bye everybody.